Hello! Today I wanted to show you a really fun project that I've done with a lot of my beginning art students. We're going to be turning a photo into inspiration for a fun fabric collage. This is a great way to dip your toes into mixed media art if you've never tried it before. I absolutely love this statue from a local gardens, and so that is going to be my inspiration for today. I have my board as a base, and I'm going to start by wrapping this entire board in one solid piece of fabric for the background. I'm leaving the fabric about 1 inch bigger than the board on each side, and I find it easier to start by securing the corners. So I'm folding those in first and then folding in the edges, kind of like you're wrapping a present. For this part, I use hot glue so that it bonds instantly. Next, I'm going to take my photo and cut out each individual piece, so to speak. Then we're going to use these pieces as patterns for our fabric. How you section everything off really depends on the photo you're working with, and it's definitely okay to simplify. You don't have to necessarily make your cutout super detailed where you're separating every little difference in color or shape. It's really up to you how many pieces that you want to have to work with. It's totally fine to just cut out a few main parts so that just gives the impression, because you can always add details with other materials. That's the great thing about mixed media. Now I've chosen 4 fabrics, a dark, a medium dark, a medium light, and a light. And I'm simply tracing them onto my fabric. Once I've cut out all of my pieces, I'm taking regular Elmer's glue and using a brush to brush some on the back of each piece and stick them down. This kind of glue works great because it's not too thick, so it will dry flat, but it will still adhere the fabric. Also, it doesn't dry instantly, so there's some wiggle room where you can kind of shift around and adjust your pieces and work with them a little bit more before they dry all the way. Even though this glue is pretty washable, I'd still suggest using a crappy paintbrush that you don't care about as much to spread the glue. Once your puzzle is pieced together, you want to lay it somewhere to dry, and I'd suggest piling some books or something flat and heavy on top of it to compress it while it dries. Now, I still want to add some details to the background. I thought it'd be really cool to have some trees as a backdrop. But since this is a mixed media project, I don't want to just paint everything. So I found this really cool, fuzzy, kind of stringy yarn, and I'm going to use that as the base for my trees. So now I'm just making a streak of glue and sticking this yarn right on top. I want to tack down the fuzzy parts of the yarn. Those are going to give a lot of the texture of my tree trunk. And so I'm taking just some clear gloss medium that is also going to be used eventually for a sealer over the whole thing at the end. And I'm using a flat brush to brush over that yarn and just get all the little fuzzies tacked down. Next, I'm going to add some more details and a little bit of shadows and highlights with some acrylic paint. I'm choosing to use all metallics because I want to have that extra sort of contrast with the texture of the fabric. I'm using a couple different brands, which I will list in the video description. The price of paints nowadays is just insane, so I definitely am not one that uses all the golden and the Liquitex, although those paints are beautiful. I don't have the budget for that, so I've found some good budget-friendly options that still work great in my opinion. So now that I brushed some highlight not only over my statue, but over my trees, just really lightly using the tip of my brush, I am now going to use a darker metallic color to outline the trunk of the trees and add more definition, and also add the branches. I've switched to a smaller detail brush for this part, and you can see how the trees are really starting to take shape. It's amazing what you can do with really unconventional materials that you wouldn't really think of using for art normally. I'm also adding some shadow onto the figure, mostly to add details like the individual fingers on the hands, and to add a little more depth where there's transitions between a dark and light plane of the statue. I am also going to start detailing the face. Now, I've had a lot of practice, so I'm just doing this freehand by looking at the picture. But a good thing to know is that graphite transfer paper does work on fabric. So with this material, what you can do is just lay it right on top of your piece and lay something to trace on top of that. So you're making a sandwich with your piece that you want to draw on or transfer onto, then the graphite paper in the middle, and then the image that you want to trace to transfer onto it right on top. And so I could take that print out of the face, put it on the very top of that sandwich, and then draw over all the outlines with a pencil, and the pressure will transfer a graphite outline right onto my fabric. So this is a great tool, highly recommend. I honestly would have probably sped up the process and used that myself if I had any laying around, but I just don't happen to have any right now. At the end here, I'm adding a couple more highlights just to bring everything together, and a couple more little dabs of the white pearlescent paint to show the frost and snow that's sticking to the sculpture. I want the look of that ice and frost to be throughout the entire piece, on the trees, on the sculpture, so that there's little bits of this lightest highlight color circling throughout the entire composition. There are so many options with mixed media. I really could have kept adding to this. A lot of mixed media, you do a lot of layering, but I chose to keep this one a little more simple and just have one main area of focus. Mixed media art is so fun. It really just feels good to explore and play. And what's nice is you can use a lot of materials you just have laying around your house. I do a lot of mixed media art demos as well as some other art techniques, so if you enjoyed this, please be sure to subscribe.